Hello folks, welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. This video is likely going to lead to many slings and arrows. Going to piss some people off, no doubt about it, on both sides of this issue. But frankly, this just needs to be said. This is an opinion piece, not news. The South African Human Rights Commission has found Ngizwe Mchunu's remarks about the LGBTQI+ community to constitute hate speech and unfair discrimination. Well, what did he say? This week, the South African Human Rights Commission found that Mchunu's statements that same-sex couples should not wear Zulu traditional attire amounted to hate speech and unfair discrimination. But that does not sound particularly egregious or foul. But wait, folks, there's much more. News 24 reports that in response, media personality Ngizwe Mchunu has rejected the South African Human Rights Commission's order for him to apologize for remarks to the community, saying the commission will find their apology in my grave. So, you are going to make an apology from the afterlife. Well, folks, that doesn't sound very contrite. Will the captured South African Human Rights Commission pursue further action? After all, they demanded 500,000 rand from Steve Hofmeyr when they censored his speech. How much must Meneer Mchunu pay? Well, according to Ngizwe, nothing. Today, he said he would never apologize for his comments, insisting that he was defending the cultural values and traditions of the Zulu nation. Honestly, it's kind of difficult to argue with his logic, whether you agree with it or not. He said, I don't understand how they reached that conclusion. They can off. I stand by what I said because it was meant to preserve our culture, he's reported to have said. Now, the commission said it had concluded that Mchunu's comments were prima facie violations of the provisions of the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act. Whoa, that sounds quite serious, ladies and gentlemen. But you see, the forces of wokeism are hard at work, folks. Censoring speech, undermining faith and culture around the globe. Fragile feelings are used as an excuse to bring the illegitimate power of the state to bankrupt, damage the reputation, shadow ban, and punish those whom certain groups of activists, who, by the way, contribute virtually nothing to the human condition, make their life's work. Israel Folau, Steve Hofmeyr, Ronaldo Gross, and Ngizwe Mchunu, to censor their speech, which was not directed at any individual, is atrocious. Had they singled out an individual, well, then it's a different story, one of slander or defamation. But that's not the situation in nearly all these cases, and we're going to talk about that. Ostensibly, this repressive wokeism is intended to prevent harm to groups. They often point to how the Nazis demonized groups, and consequently, we must silence speech that we do not like. Wrong. This abhorrent behavior is innate in the Homo sapiens species. You cannot wish or regulate it away. You can keep it under control with morality, something badly missing in much of the 21st century world. But the outrage is far more often than not very selective and very one-sided. While their comments generate instant outrage from activists, many of whom are simply an embarrassment to the wider gay community at large, they and the woke community are free to endlessly insult, bash, verbally assault, and make fun of Christians, heterosexuals, and white folks with nary any consequences. Make no mistake, I'm not calling for persecution of activists who do that. In a real society, when someone offends us as a group, we simply don't associate with them. We exclude them. We ostracize them. Either they get the message and move on, or they do not. But the misuse of state power, in this case, the captured South African Human Rights Commission, to seek to financially punish others is ludicrous. It does not prevent other gay bashing. It does not promote that either. Hateful people will act regardless of whether these statements are made or not. The South African Human Rights Commission has sent a letter demanding that Mchunu immediately cease from publishing, distributing, or promoting any further content that incites violence, constitutes hate speech, or amounts to discrimination of the LGBTQI+. Are there any more letters this week? People on the platform. Hate speech. Really? What about Notaboloye's white people are genetically inferior and no more than dogs that we need to be put on leash comments? While vile and repulsive, they have not exactly led to white people being put on leashes or a drop in the birth rate. You see his hate speech? What has it resulted in? For his far more egregious hate speech, Notaboloye simply had to make an insincere apology on YouTube. There was no 100,000 rand fine. And what of Nobs Mkhize? Her verbal tirade against colored flight attendants demonstrated racism, hatred, and privileged catered life that she led. Not to mention the physical assault where she endangered every passenger and crew member in mid-flight. What were the consequences for her? Negligible. Is she even banned from aviation in South Africa? Hate speech is selective. For example, will Julius Malema serve jail time for destroying Dante van Wyck's life? Dante has to live on the run or risk being murdered as a consequence of Malema's hate speech, facing endless death threats. Organizations like the South African Human Rights Commission, while ostensibly well-intentioned, are all too easily used immorally to target others and should be disbanded. If someone offends or attacks you personally, you have a case. But resorting to lawfare to destroy someone who is defending their own culture, language, or faith in offending a group of others is a callow response of the cowardly and morally weak. Now, before you assume I endorse Mchunu's comments, let's be clear. He described same-sex relationships as shameful and claimed that Zulu regalia should be reserved for heterosexual men, calling it an insult to our ancestors for gay couples to wear it. Well, your ancestors only go back about 200 years, so it's not a very long time. Mchunu also referred to gays as mgodui, or dog, including media personality Somizi Mlongo, stated Mlongo should take all his people and leave South Africa. Now, Mlongo has a case of defamation. The gay community does not. He also stated that gay people must be discriminated against publicly, adding that a man who sleeps with another man should be arrested or get a talking to. Now, those comments border on inciting violence. This is an issue for a prosecutor, not a catered or patronage machine supposedly protecting people. News 24 reports that the South African Human Rights Commission is considering the Equality Court. Seriously? Considering it? After the disgraceful way they manipulated the Ronaldo Khos story and knowingly still sought to bankrupt him in legal fees, in proceedings, knowing full well that the press ombudsman had punished the media for lying about the Khos video? How in the world is the South African Human Rights Commission not already filing a case against Mchunu? For his part, Mchunu appears to be unmoved by the South African Human Rights Commission's position, saying, how do they measure a statement to qualify it as hate speech? Well, that's a reasonable question. There's nothing in my utterances that was discriminating against anyone, and there's nothing I'm going to apologize for at all. Well, he certainly owes Somizi Mlongo an apology. They will find their apology in my grave. I will never bow down from my statement for representing and protecting the Zulu kingdom, my culture and heritage. Well, Mchunu is welcome to defend his culture and the legacy of a violent regime that murdered hundreds of thousands of black Africans to forge the Zulu Empire. But somehow, I suspect this story is far from over. What say you, South Africa? South Africa, Mzansi? Cheers.